This is a 2007 Audi R8 V8, and is it a future classic? Well, in this video we're going to find out, because I'm going to drive it, I'm going to show you all around it. I'm going to give you some buying tips, things to look out for if you're going to buy one of these, which could cost you a lot of money. I'm also, of course, even though it's old, going to launch it to see how quick it really is from 0 to 60 miles an hour. This video is brought to you by the new Stereo app. It's a live broadcast social platform which you can download for free by following the link in the description or the pinned comment below. When the R8 went on sale in 2007, everyone was like, oh my God, look at that, it's amazing. Now some cars date, but this hasn't at all. It still looks fresh and modern. You could argue that it actually looks better than the current R8. I really like the look of it, I really do. And don't forget, it was cool enough for Iron Man. One of the standout design features on the R8 is this, the side blade. I love the side blade. You can have them in different colours. You can even get them in carbon. This works well with this grey combination. It's nice. Every single angle of this car just works. It's got a lovely back end, and yeah, they're real vents, real exhaust pipes as well. V8 has twin pipes on each side. The V10 version had an oval pipe on each side. It's a bit dirty, can't help that, can't wash it. And I've been driving it, having fun. That's how it should be in the winter. The good thing is, even when you're driving on grimy roads, the dirt never seems to make it onto this rear screen, so it's always clear for you to look through and drool over that V8 engine. It's also nice actually when it's a cold day like today, because then you can warm your hands and your body on this warm engine bay. One of the key things about the Audi R8 is that all its body panels are made out of aluminium. Don't know what that's proving. I should really get a magnet and show that it doesn't stick. Anyway, also, the wishbone suspension is made out of aluminium as well. All this helps keep the weight down, though this car still weighs in at 1,575 kilos, so it's not exactly a featherweight. Now, part of the reason for that weight is the fact that you've got Quattro permanent all-wheel drive, and it's set up so that it sends 70% of the power to the rear wheels and only 30% to the front, so it does have a rear drive bias. For that sporty driving experience, yeah. The R8 was initially launched with this engine here. It's a 4.2 litre naturally aspirated V8 with 420 horsepower. It's supposed to do 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds, but we'll find out exactly what it does in a moment when I launch it and time it. A year later, in 2008, Audi actually fitted the 5.2 litre naturally aspirated V10 from the Lamborghini Gallardo, and that had 520 horsepower and could do 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. Let's see how quick this old R8 is from 0 to 60 miles an hour. Sorry to interrupt the video just before I launch the old R8 and probably knacker its aging clutch, but I need to tell you about the new Stereo app. It's basically a podcast between two people that's live that other people can join in on by sending voice messages. To show you what it's like, here's an extract from my recent Stereo show with Yanni.
When are you going to let Yanni wrap one of your cars? And will he have full design choice over what you get? So it'll be a total surprise.
Good question, Alex.
So, Yanni, it's up to you. When are you going to wrap one of my cars?
Are you going to pay though, Matt?
Of course not. The people want to see it. You've got to give the people what they want. In terms of Jan having his own choice, well, do you know what? If he's going to do it for free, I'll let him do whatever he wants to do. And I promise, no matter what it is, to drive the car around in that scheme for at least 3 months.
I'm happy for that deal. You heard it here live on Stereo. You heard it, and there's no running away from that. He said he will let me wrap one of his cars and he'll have to drive for 3 months. And you can't give me like your Fiat or the Porsche that you never drive around. I want a car that you use on a daily basis. I want people to see my masterpiece, the work of art.
How many points on your licenses do you both have?
None.
Really?
0 points. Yeah. What do you mean, really?
Now I'll be doing another Stereo show with Yanni live tomorrow night at 7 PM. So make sure you tune in and send in your questions to us. You can download the app for free by following the link in the description or in the pinned comment below. Anyway, let's get on with the launching of the R8. I have my specialist timing gear up here. I'm going to launch it. Come on. Bit off the pace there. 0 to 60 5.2 seconds. Crap gear change. I'm going to try it again. This time I'm going to try it with the ESP in sport mode. Come on. Bit slippery there. That's a better one. Oh, a 4.9 seconds. And you know what? I'm not sure I want to do it again because I don't want to damage the clutch. Here on the inside, the R8 actually still feels pretty modern. It's a really, really nice design. I like the sweeping dash. I like the quality of the leather. Nice steering wheel. The seating position's brilliant. Loads of adjustment in it as well. So it doesn't matter whether you're big or small, you're going to be able to find a decent driving position. And you sit nice and low in it as well. There's a couple of things that I do find a little bit odd. For instance, the layout of the dials, always the Audis of this era with that kind of shaped dials just reminded me of Wall-E. You're not going to be able to unsee that now, sorry. Another thing that I'm not so keen on is this. The infotainment system just seems so dated. It hasn't even got Bluetooth for audio, so you can't play your music through it. If I was going to buy this car, I'd rip that out, I'd keep it, you know, for future when I come to sell the car, and put a modern system in, so I've got full connectivity. In terms of practicality, we've got some cup holders there. There's a ledge here where you can store stuff, and a glove box of moderate size and some small pins in the door. It's not the most practical, but it is a sports car, isn't it? Underneath here is your boot, your front boot, so your fruit. And you have a 100 litre capacity. I think it's a little bit smaller than you have on an equivalent Porsche 911, but you can fit enough luggage in there for a weekend away. And look, I'm like a cat that's presented with an open box. I just have to get in it. There's enough room for a man in here. In fact, I reckon I could fill it with water and have a little bath. That's a bit odd, but you could. One of my favourite things about this original R8 is the open gated manual gearbox. It's just so, so good to use. I love it. You can get the car with an automatic with a single clutch auto, and it should have been called the R Chronic because it just isn't very good. In 2012 they updated that automatic with a dual clutch system and it's much better, but still, if you're buying this car, you want to be able to go because it's just so wonderful. An early 2007 Audi R8 V8 will set you back from around 30 grand. However, you probably want to spend about £40,000 because then you'll get a Minter like this one here. Though if you are buying one of these cars, there are a few things to look out for. While these brakes are brilliant, you've got 8 piston calipers at the front and 4 piston at the rear. These discs are rather expensive, so they cost 300 quid each. So you want to make sure that they're in good condition, and it's best to change your pads when they're about 50% down because you don't want to accidentally damage these discs and end up having to replace them. The V8 engine is generally very tough, but if you hear a clunking noise, that could be the bottom end bearings going. Walk away from that car because that could be really expensive to fix. The engine can get coked up because of the direct injection system. A decoke will fix that for you. One thing to watch out for though is the clutch, because it'll cost about £3,500 to have one replaced. Make sure you check the radiators for any leaks. It's a common problem on these cars. Also, if you are buying one, get it up on a ramp, get all the underbody trays removed to look for other leaks in the brake lines and coolant hoses as well. Another thing to check that the lights are working properly, all the LEDs and the xenons, because one of these units will cost you about £650. Because the rear suspension wishbones are made out of aluminium, but they went and used steel bolts on the car, the two can react, so if you need to remove anything, it can be a bit of a problem. However, that's the least of your worries. If the rear lower wishbones go, which can be a common fault on these, £3,000 each to replace, because you have to replace the whole unit and the hub. Take the car for a drive, brake, accelerate, and go over speed humps if you can, and listen out for any knocking sounds. That could be a sign that there's a problem with the low wishbones. Look out for general wear and tear in the interior. For instance, the leather on the seat bases can get a little bit baggy, as they have done on this car. If you look at this gear knob, you can see it's all scratched. The driver obviously wore rings and made a bit of a mess of that. Shame. Bigger concern is this: if you get a car with the magnetic ride, they can fail. And the dampers cost £800 a corner. So you might be safer just getting one with the normal setup. In fact, if I was buying this car, I would actually just get one without the magnetic ride and replace all the suspension on the car anyway. As a matter of course, probably fit coilovers. Let's see what this old R8 is like to drive. Well, do you know what? It may be over 13 years old, but it still feels really quite new in here. One of the things about the R8 was that it was always easy to drive, yet when you wanted to have fun and you wanted performance, it gave you exactly that. These adaptive dampers are great when they're working, and they really do smooth out the bumps in the road, and the faster you get, the more they smooth out those bumps. If I press the button down here, put it into sports mode, all of a sudden you can feel it firm everything up. It's a little bit too bumpy then for British roads. The comfort setting though is perfect, as is the gear shift. Oh, it's so nice. You find yourself just changing gear for the hell of it, even when you don't need to. But then again, this is an engine that likes to rev. You can spin it all the way up to 8,000 RPM and it sounds awesome when you do it. So sure-footed, this car. Steering's sharp, direct. I actually spoke to the guy who was in charge of developing this car and he said that if there's one thing he'd have changed, it would have been the steering. He did say that he wanted even more feedback, but they have to develop these things to a budget and they had spent all that they could in that area. But I think the steering, by today's standards, because it's hydraulically assisted, is just nicer than most modern supercars or sports cars. And you can't fault a naturally aspirated V8. The throttle response, you just flex your right foot and it immediately just picks up. It's actually quite easy to heel and toe as well. The pedal position is just really nice. And the beauty of this car is that it's not too cumbersome to just suddenly have to do a U-turn. And the clutch pedal isn't too hard or stiff either. So when you're just pooling around in this car, it doesn't get on your nerves. I really like it. And then you put your foot down and, oh yes. Do you know what? You do not need to go any quicker than this car is capable of on the road. You really don't. Back in the day, I'd always recommend getting the V10 just because of that sound, and the added performance made it feel like a supercar rather than a sports car. But when you're buying an older car, that's not such a problem. And I think this V8 really, when you're thinking about it, it is all you need. They absolutely nailed it when they released this thing. It's got to be a future classic. There is only one thing that I've noticed that really annoys me when I'm driving this car. I'm in my ideal driving position, but the way the key is and the fob, it's always like bashing off my knee. Now, I don't want to take the fob off the key because it's got the Audi logo on it, but it's just a bit annoying that it's just tapping away there like that. That really is my only complaint though with the way it drives. That's the biggest problem. That shows how good this car is. So what do I think about the Audi R8 V8? Well, do you know what? It's a bit of a bargain, really. There's so much car here. It looks modern. It's got all the performance you could ever need. With the manual, it's fun to drive. It's a fabulous, fabulous thing. The only problem is that now I think I quite want one myself, which means I'm going to have to get another car. Should I get one? I really shouldn't get another car. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But it is wonderful. It really, really is. Don't want to give it back. I hope you'll enjoy the video. If you did, please give it a like. You can watch some more videos by clicking on those windows there, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Also, download the Stereo app for free by following the link in the description or in the pinned comment, and tune in to my new show.